Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the pod. I am your host, Fallon Jordan, and today we're going to be talking about something that, I definitely sprinkle it throughout everything that we do, but really just talking to someone who understands exercise and not it. And the thing that I'm really excited for everyone to learn from David Amerland about is he actually has a background in quantum dynamics, which I think is really cool. And then you also have a background in like SEO and social media and like communication. So we are just so excited to dive in with all of the different things that you've done to really help people understand this transformation of like, oh, I have to go to the gym because of da 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 versus the way that you and your Built to Last program and books actually help us like get excited about these programs. And I know you have, I think, 84 different programs that you share with people, which is so cool. So thank you so much for being here, David. And I can't wait to dive in with you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. I'm really excited about where this is going to go.
I know. So I would love to know when you first started loving exercise or started exercising and realized that like it was part of your mission to kind of change the mindset around it for some people.
Well, I'm a little bit of an oddity in some ways. I started exercising when I was 13. I got into martial arts and
Cool.
and I'm 60 now, so I've been doing it for 47 years. And in that time, I've exercised every single day. I've got a black belt in three different martial arts styles. I was doing competitive Taekwondo for about 10 years at a very high elite level, both national and international.
Wow.
And if I'm familiar with any kind of prolonged, focused exercise, the people who do it are emotionally tied into it. It does more things than just give them the physical capability. So it did that for me, right? My parents were moving. I was in Australia. My parents were moving around state to state, new schools, no friends. You're 13-year-old, it does things to your head.
Yeah.
So I sort of channeled all that angst and anger and confusion into something, and it helped clarify my thinking. And it became for me throughout my life, and still to this day, a kind of guardrail. It's my safety valve. I sort of it helps keep my head clear.
That's incredible. And I think it's important for maybe some of the moms out there of teenage kids who maybe are struggling with, just anger. Like being a teenager isn't fun, right? It's not fun. And I think
Yes.
that there is just a lot that we could do. And I think from my friends and people I've talked to who've done martial arts as a teenager, it really changed everything. And every time I meet someone and find this out, it just is like a total soul connection because there's just something different about the way that you move through the world, right?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought this up. Now, I can't stress this enough. And there's zero bias towards from me in this thing. Although I love martial arts, I'm always very careful in prescribing it. But for developing teens, what happens, we know now from neuroscience. Essentially, in order for you to move your body correctly in three-dimensional space, you need to engage so many different centers of your brain. You need to bring in your memories and your expectations and your understanding and your neurological structure, your neuron, and you bring all those things together. And they developed parts of you which then have to do with executive function, which is the goal-oriented tasks which we appoint ourselves to do and how focused we become. And also it helps with emotional regulation, which is absolutely excellent as you're growing up because our head is full of thoughts and confusion and our body is full of hormones and we feel like a powder keg about to blow up at any
Yeah.
moment. So for developing teens, martial arts, it's almost like a dance class, but a little bit more focused in terms of
Yeah.
how the body moves.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic. And what they'll find is that you can't physically change on the outside. Your performance can't change unless you change on the inside. And that's where the
Mm,
magic happens.
I love that. That's amazing. And yeah, I think it's important. I come from the brain world and that's all I talked about all day, every day for 12 years. And then I wanted to talk more about other things, but the concept of that is very important for people to continuously hear over and over because your brain literally is developing until you're 25. And so if you have this movement, right? Like we know what that's doing for the cerebellum. It's really just making your brain have more connections. I mean, the whole reason that all these evil companies are attacking our kids with screens of video games is because it literally causes you not to have as many connections. And I would love to hear, especially since before we hit record, you live in the UK part of the year and in Greece part of the year. And so for me, both of those places I think of like, oh, it'd be so fun to just like walk around and look in things and that could actually be like the exercise and things like that. What are you currently doing right now, an exercise regimen that is really like lighting you up?
I'm in I'm in Greece, so I go walking a lot during the day. I live by the sea, so I've got like this walk which I can do. It's about 7 kilometers, and I try to do it daily, and it helps clear my head. But I also have a
Amazing.
small home gym, and and this is intentional, right? I mean, one of the things which has to have to stress about exercise is that if we sort of approach in a slightly more structured, formal way, it's definitely a stressor.
Hmm.
It's not a bad thing because it helps us adapt both physically and mentally. But inside our head is a very ancient algorithm which kind of tries to preserve as much energy as possible during the day so we don't expend anything which we don't need to, because in the ancient past we came from, we wouldn't survive. So when the moment we mention exercise, we feel this reticence to do it. And and it's really hard to articulate, but it's kind of, you don't want to. And then
Yeah.
our brain gives us all these excuses, right? Emails, work, stress, bills to pay, things to do. Maybe we can put it off for a day. Maybe we can train harder the next day, giving us a whole pass, if you like. And we're willing to accept that, right? And we know that if we accept it, then we don't do it the next day. Maybe the next day it'll be another excuse, and it just sort of goes downhill from there. So I have a home gym in order to get rid of a lot of these excuses, and then I have a strategy, which I will explain later, on how to get around this reticence, which is entirely natural.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that because I feel like a lot of my listeners are like really, really busy. They're taking care of a lot of other people. And so when we start having the conversation around self-care, it's like water, sleep, exercise. Like those are the three most important things. And one of those is usually not happening. So,
Okay, so let's actually tackle that. I think, I love what you said, and definitely sleep is important. I mean, it's one of the pillars of fitness alongside nutrition and alongside socializing. And we need exercise,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So let's see, we know we need exercise, and we know that if we take anybody off the street and tell them, this is what you need to do. You need to exercise, move your body a bit more, eat right, sleep right, and socialize. Not a party animal, but have friends, be social, etc. They'll
Exactly.
agree. They'll agree 100%, right? No problem. So intellectually, we all know that, and we're all for it. And when it comes to doing it, we don't. And the reason we don't is what I explained earlier. We know that anthropologists who have been embedded in the few remaining hunter-gatherer communities in the world that are isolated from civilization, they have the closest thing we can come to a Paleolithic lifestyle. So they
Hmm.
get up in the morning and they have to, walk for their water. They have to perhaps run, have to for a while. They have to dig. They have to climb. They have to cut their way through bushes, etc. All this is exercise, but that's their life, right? They don't have a
Hmm.
choice. They've got to do that.
Hmm.
When they don't have to do that, what do? Nothing. They don't do anything. They just hang around, right? We don't see them swinging the machetes around trying to be cooler or develop a more efficient technique. They don't go and lift rocks to have bigger muscles. They do nothing, none of those things, because if they did, they'd be expanding more energy than their energy deficient environment would give them, and they wouldn't survive. So the problem is we have that mechanism in our head, which is trying to help us conserve energy. We have a refrigerator within about 15, 20 paces for most of us, with about 10,000 calories. And we sit down most of the day working at a screen like I do most of the day. And then when it actually comes to exercise, we feel that mechanism that says, you're crazy, you're going to do something you don't have to. And that's
Mm.
where we need to be smart. And I employ two strategies for this. The first strategy is to make a deal with myself. I say, Go and do it for 10 minutes. And if at the end of the 10-minute period, then put a stopwatch on my watch, I'll turn on the stopwatch, I've got a 10-minute window. If by the end of that 10-minute window, my mood hasn't changed, that's it, I call it quits. 10 minutes is all I got. And this is what happens in that 10-minute window. We have the science now that explains this. Anytime between the 8 and 10-minute mark, our mood changes, our body temperature has gone up significantly, the way we move our body has changed, and something has changed in our head, and we feel better about it, and we tend to continue doing it. And what we know today, and again, this is an ancient part of us, is that if we exert ourselves for 8 to 10 minutes, our muscles secrete a particular type of hormone, which affects the dopamine levels in our head, activates the reward system, makes us feel better about what we do, secretes serotonin levels so they go up and we feel better about it. And the most important part, it dampens down the discomfort we have been feeling because of the stressor. So now we're more inclined to do it. And the reason for this is that back then, when, 10,000 years ago, we had to run usually to grab our food or avoid becoming food. And if we exercise for about 8 to 10 minutes, we get tired. The brain receives a signal from the body. The body says, "Oh, I'm tired." And the brain sends the signal back. Well, maybe you can stop. And if you stop, what happens? You don't get your food and you starve, or you become food and you die, which are not very positive outcomes.
Yeah.
So this response of the muscles is intended to help us survive in that adversarial environment of the past. And if we employ it today by saying, okay, 10 minutes, what have I got to lose? Worst case scenario, I've exercised for 10 minutes instead of 0. Best case scenario, this has kicked in and always kicks in. And now you're going to exercise longer. So that's one of the strategies I employ, and it works every single time for me. And every friend I've told this to, it works for them as well. So
Absolutely. Yeah, getting that brain BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. And it's funny because I love that you were talking about the 10-minute thing and the science behind it. Because I'll even notice that like with our pets, like when we're like walking a dog or whatever, like you can tell when that happy chemical is turned on because they're like extra excited and like you're like, what has been going on? We've been walking this whole time and you weren't this happy. Like it's really cool when you start to pay attention because like they only have certain ways to show. But yeah, I mean, when I work with couples, I'm like, I just want you to go for a walk and I want you to walk fast and whatever you're pissed off about, that's totally fine. You can get back to the argument when you get home. But if you did the walk, then it's not going to be the same argument.
you're absolutely right. And there's so many factors there in what you just said. I mean, beyond
Yeah.
the fact that our muscles are producing this and our mood changes, the moment we walk outside, we know it now from neuroscientific studies again, that the impact of our foot on the ground connects the higher centers of the brain to our to the process of receiving information from the external world. And we can be a lot more analytical. Our blood pressure goes down, our heartbeat slows down a little bit, we breathe more evenly, and we think a lot more clearly because those higher analytical centers are actually engaged. And this is part of what they call global cognition as opposed to
Mm.
executive function. If we go and do some other kind of exercise, like perhaps lifting weights or boxing or even martial arts, for sure, it has the same kind of physiological impact on us, which is very positive. In terms of cognition, it helps with executive function, which has to do with tasks and focus and performance and sort of following through on the process we have in front of us. But when it comes to walking or running, it's global function. It brings in all the other centers. And again, this is arguably one of the remnants of ancient mechanisms inside us because, again, if we are out there walking, what are we doing? Most probably foraging. We need to be aware of what's happening around us. We need to be able to pick the right things from whatever is on offer. We need to be able to strategize in order to optimize our food gathering process. So these are things which are part of our operating system today. If we understand them better, we make better use of them. And I love the fact that you said you get back and the argument is different because our head is clear, our mood has changed. We're dealing with our emotions a lot more differently. We're less reactive. And I think that's a fantastic way, for our mental health. It's great for
Mhm.
our psychology. It's brilliant for our sense of self-control. And the more control we feel we have over our life, the better kind of life we tend to have.
Absolutely. So I love talking about like the differences between the male brain and the female brain. And I know for myself, me going for a 30-minute walk when I'm ovulating, like I'm just like, life is a daydream, rainbows getting sunshine, like everything's great. I'll get creative ideas versus like, when I'm about to get my period, like, and I go for a walk, like it's medicinal. I'm like, this needs to calm down this anxiety, like all these like hormonal changes. So I'm curious when you work with clients and things like that, I mean, what are they giving you for, like, what are you finding? Because again, for me, like lifting some weight, walking is always going to make me feel better. Do you see that with most people?
Absolutely, yes. And again, when it comes to advising people on how to start, which is, one of the critical things, a lot of people want to start something and they don't know how to go about it. And my advice is always, what do you like doing?
Mm,
So start with that. If you like walking, let's start with that. If you like running, great. If you feel that lifting is what you're doing, fantastic. And the reason we start with that is that, excuse me, everybody's a little bit different. Uh, we have different trauma, different childhood experiences, different past, different memories, different expectations, different knowledge, all those things. And everybody's unique. And we haven't even touched on the microbiome or the neuronal connections we have. So when somebody expects you to give them something which has worked for one person and hoping that it'll work for them, that's insane because they're
yeah.
different. So we have to try and help people. We have to try and help people customize things to them. So instead of making their life feel fit into fitness, we have to try and get fitness to fit into their life. And that's the correct way of going about it, because then it's going to be more sustaining for them. They'll make them feel good, but also it becomes sustainable. The thing that they can actually do for a long, long period of time without really raising the energetic cost. And you
Mm,
mentioned women, right? And the hormonal cycle. And it's crazy because until very recently, we used to treat men and women the same. And when it came to exercise, women were kind of honorary men, which is also insane.
yeah.
And we know now that the female body goes through these cyclical changes. We know that throughout the hormonal cycle, the hormonal profile of a woman's body changes every single day. And the hormonal profile of a male body is the same day to day, which is, you think, okay, it's like different animals entirely.
Yeah.
So the performance is going to be different. And that's why it's so important to customize it to how you feel, what you can do, what your expectations are, who you think you are inside you. So it becomes part of your identity. Why you're doing it, because everybody does it differently. And it doesn't matter if your why, the one you start off with, changes because we all evolve, we're all a process. So it's not like we're sort of cast in stone, and once we discover it, it's going to be that forever. It's going to evolve as our own expectations, awareness, capabilities change, the horizon is going to change. So it's really important to sort of help people understand this, because it's got to be something that they do for themselves, and they understand both the reasons they do it and also how it impacts the sense of their identity, of who they are.
Yeah, I love that you tapped into the identity because a lot of those like um affirmations and things like that, like I am a person who exercises. I am a person who runs 5Ks regularly. One of my best friends actually just went through that experience. She's like, 2 months ago, I was never even thinking about like being a runner. And like now I'm a runner. And it's like that has rippled out into like all these different things in her life where it's like, wow, like I have this new identity because I have this like really cool new skill. And I think that that's helpful when it comes to personal development. And so I think as we grow and transform like the things that we want to do, especially in the form of like exercise and self-care, those are going to shift and change too. I mean, you started with martial arts and now you walk on the beach in Greece. Like that's pretty awesome.
Well, I still do some martial arts, so I still sort of keep it going. But yeah, it's what you said. I mean, the intensity of what I do these days compared to what I used to do is night and day. But My
Mm,
goals have changed in terms of the targets. I mean, when I was competing, like any competitor, you compete to win. And that becomes your guiding star, if you
mm,
like. That defines everything. It defines what you're going to eat and how you're going to sleep and how long you exercise and everything else around it, right? So it's very, very rigid because if you're not doing that, then there's no sense in competing. You know, you're just going to just throw something away and what, you're just showing up for nothing.
mm-hmm,
So that's a different kind of mindset. And when I stopped competing and stopped competing in the year 2000, um, I sort of coasted on my fitness for a bit because I was very high level of fitness. I still exercise, but kind of a little bit, the focus wasn't there. And then I had to work it out for myself. I got to say, okay, what am I doing it for now? So that was a very uncomfortable self-talk because, you sort of peel back the layers of who you are. And what you discover there is not always what you expect to find. And
yeah.
you have to dig.
When did you have this conversation with yourself?
Oh, it's sort of like towards the year 2002.
Okay.
And I had to sort of find a new focus on, why would I have this kind of structure around training and exercise? Because I needed to create something for me.
Hmm.
And I had to sort of find the reason for doing it. I had to sort of define for myself the values behind those actions. And it has to be valuable. It has to be that emotional connection. I mean, we mentioned earlier that, take anybody intellectually, they would agree that they need to exercise, but they don't. But the moment the emotional connection is there, the moment it actually means something of real value to you in terms of the outcome, then the process of exercise, which is uncomfortable, it doesn't feel so uncomfortable. It feels like something which you're prepared to do. And
Hmm.
that's the trick, really. This is the trick of sort of peeling back the layers and saying, okay, who am I now and why am I going to do this? Well, once you find the answer to that, then the process doesn't seem too bad. You think, okay, I understand why I'm doing it now, so I'm 100% behind it.
I love it. That's amazing. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, like I am still in shock that David is 60, but like not really because of the lifestyle that you live. But I think a lot of people here too, like they want to feel younger. They care about their 12 strands of DNA being activated. They care about their telomere length. And, exercise is such a beautiful way to do that. And especially what we were sharing. And I'm so grateful you did about getting our feet on the earth because that's like something I'm like super gung-ho about. Um, I mean, there's a reason why a tree and the nervous system and the human body look almost exactly the same. And so, again, like I think I'm speaking to somebody, I guess, who feels alone maybe with their exercise, but like you're never alone. Like you have the earth, you have all the animals. I literally had a goose following me down the street the other day. I was like, this is new. So, you're never alone. And I think that when we are in kind of like our cocoon isolation stage, like we're about to burst something like really big into our life and make a major change, exercise is such a beautiful way to really get in touch with your inner creativity, especially if you haven't done that before or you've only done it because, like you had to. Your job was to be a housewife. So like you had to work out, but you were miserable. Or maybe never took care of yourself. So you never exercised. And now it's like this big push and pull of like, oh my gosh, like I really need to take care of myself before it's too late. You know what I mean? We've had people on here talking about women in their 30s and 40s having heart attacks and strokes. So it's like we really need to be having these conversations sooner and like teaching them to our kids too. Like again, I'm so grateful for what you shared about your journey, like doing this and getting really disciplined in martial arts as a teenager. And look at you now. I mean, you have these books, you have these programs, like you're just doing so many different things that you love. And especially with your background kind of being like sprinkled in all of these different areas, it all comes together at the end. And I think that's something important for people to realize is that like this
It
conversation and
does.
like just is
It's
one piece
true.
to the puzzle.
Yeah, and I want to stress, when I look back and we look to here, like rather when if we look where I am from where I started off, it kind of seems like there's a plan, but there is no plan, right? It
Yeah.
sort of happens. But here's what it is. If you have some way to decompress, something to create structure in your head, something to help you from going off the rails, then your decisions collectively are a little bit better than they would have been otherwise. And a good life essentially is that. It's a collection of small but consistently good decisions.
Hmm.
And and it starts from something as simple as exercise, because that's the one part, especially when I was growing up, it's the one part of me which I could absolutely control, right? I couldn't
Yeah,
control my life. I could control the world around me. I couldn't control what happened to me to a large extent, but I could actually control my body in that context of the martial arts club environment. And I love that. And that helped then all the other things inside me in a cascade of connected events where, the physical sensations I have change the anxiety levels inside me, change the reactive neurochemistry in my body, change the way my brain gets wired so I'm not constantly on edge, and then it becomes slightly better. And I think, this is what we must stress for everybody. We have almost zero control of the world around us, and we all know that when we start thinking about it.
hmm,
But we can have control of our body. And if we start with that, then a lot of other good things happen.
absolutely. I love that so much. Um, so I would love to hear more about how you work with people.
Well, these days, I do mostly books. I used to travel a lot and talk, and I used to talk about business primarily, but then about decision making. Every new book I bring out sort of kind of linked, because I chart human behavior through it and all the
Mm,
things, how we behave in different contexts. And this is the one connective thread in all those different books. So whether we're in a digital domain or in a social domain, we're talking about trust. In a business domain, we're talking about trust, or we're talking about decision making, or we're talking about intentionality, whatever it is. There's the things we know, the things we understand, the things we know we should be doing, and the things we don't do.
yeah.
And for me, it's always, why do we behave like this? And it's no different to fitness. We're discussing, everybody will agree, yes, it's absolutely great, we must do these things. We don't do them. And that's what I go mining in every sort of sphere. So when I talk to people, I talk to them about sometimes very specific things, but then it always comes down to human behavior. It's like I used to come in and go in and talk to corporations, sort of see at Fortune 500 companies and talk to C-suite level about search. And then they would go back and train their teams or, do their search engine strategy. But it wasn't about search. They had adequately informed people on staff. Things would come out that, information they needed in order for those people to be effective wasn't available because somebody was keeping it to themselves. Because in any corporate environment, information is currency, so they were using it for status. So then we have to talk about things like trust and how we actually begin to break down this wall that exists between people, so we can start working together for a common purpose in that business context. But it's the same thing for a social context. It's the same thing for a family context. It is very, very difficult for us to comprehend how another person is inside themselves.
Hmm.
And we have this tendency, which is also a hang up from evolutionary psychology, to always think the worst. And we think the worst because clearly in the past, in the very, very, very ancient past, the majority of people who were predisposed to thinking the best and being optimistic didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes.
Yeah.
So we're left with this kind of remnant where energetically in our head, it is easier to maintain a negative thought than it is to maintain a positive one in the absence of sufficient information to make a value judgment about either.
Boom.
So, so if I don't know anything about you at all, like zero, I mean, realistically, I should have kind of zero judgment, but this is not what's going to happen. My brain will find something to tell me, aha, you better watch out because, this might happen or that might happen. And all those things are negative. And I don't know anything about you. So it's crazy. And when we take that into the social environment of, our society, a country, a city, a town, a community, a company, all those really weird things happen where people
Mm,
don't get to work together. So I end up talking to them about these things. And at some point, invariably, the conversation will come back to fitness because they'll say, okay, how do we manage stress? How do we manage emotional regulation? How do we become more productive? And you don't tend to think about these things related to fitness, but they absolutely are. If we don't feel well in who we can't be productive, we can't be easy to get along with, we're always overreacting, we can't really be successful in our work, let alone our life. So fitness is a foundation of pretty much everything. And we're not talking about, this kind of idealized fitness where, you kind of like some Greek god or Greek goddess. It's just being functional in your own body, having the capability to do what you want and actually feel good inside yourself. And if you can do that, that's amazing. Okay, that's brilliant. And that's what we should all be aiming for. So yeah, I start talking to them about these things these days, and it always comes down to, okay, tell us what to do,
I
which
love
is
that.
terrible. Yeah, I don't, because it's bad because the subtext of that is that they want to abdicate responsibility for themselves to somebody else who will give them a prescriptive approach, and they'll tell them, do this, and you'll be fine. And they won't be. In order for them to be fine, it's what you said. You have to find out who you are, find out what you like, do something which you enjoy. And if you do that, then you begin to change. Then your horizons shift. Then you become better and you can go on to other things. But you've got to start with that always.
Amazing. I love that. And I think I don't know why, but like the last few days, a lot of this like concept of gatekeeping has come up, especially with like coaches and healers. It's like, you know, your background. I'm just curious about your opinion, like how a lot of companies will market like you have the solution and da da da, and here's all the reasons why, but like this is what you have to do to get it versus like actually just giving people the information that they need and then knowing and trusting that like the universe is abundant and you'll always get what you need. So I'm curious about your thoughts in that whole realm because that's what's been like on my mind and my heart lately.
That's an excellent question. My particular personal belief is that fitness is a right and not a privilege. It
Mm,
shouldn't be locked behind gate walls. It shouldn't be a postcode lottery where if you're in a well-off neighborhood, you happen to have a gym or you have to have the resources for a community center or whatever. And if you don't, you don't. It
mhm,
shouldn't depend on, if you're in a developed country or in a developing country, we all equally need it. And I would make a very, very strong argument that the worse your socioeconomic conditions are, the more you need it because you're
mm,
under stress all the time. Pretty much every day has some kind of stressor which you need to deal with. Every decision seems to be critical because your resources are not as plentiful. So from my perspective, I tend to put a lot of stuff out there to help. I think that companies, and I've got to be careful here because they are there to make a bit to do a business and make a living. But those who offer a quick solution are preying on the vulnerable who are hoping for a shortcut. And I
mhm.
will say that there is no shortcut when it comes to your fitness. It comes down to you personally. You're the one responsible. You're the only person who knows how your body feels. So you're the only expert on this. And sure, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. You can access that. And a lot of it's free. This podcast, there's a gazillion sort of podcasts and videos on YouTube that will actually give you some information about fitness, what to do, etc. And you don't need to buy anything. And
Yeah,
you need to start for you. You got to say, okay, I need to get fitter. If you're not sure how to start, do what's easiest, and then just listen, watch, and gradually build things up for yourself. Any quick promise, any quick solution, I'm sorry to say, is a little bit of a con.
100%. And thank you for saying that because I think there's a lot of people who are really struggling with their weight and their energy and those kinds of things. And there's a lot of people preying on them. And it just like breaks my heart because, I mean, you could literally just be walking barefoot in the grass and doing a few other exercises that are perfect for your body and your lifestyle. And that literally unlocks this whole new thing for you. And I think that's important too, especially for women, because our bodies are always changing, right? Like every single day. Like I know
Yes.
people that like they start going to the gym and like they just look better, but the scale might say, "Oh, I only lost 10 pounds." Like, yeah, but your entire body changed and you put on more muscle. So could you speak to that? Because I feel like a lot of people just hear that about muscle weighing more and they don't really get it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up weight. It's a terrible metric. It's absolutely terrible, absolutely terrible. And I have male friends who leap on the scales every morning, and I tell them, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't absolutely do not do that. Because it's what you said. First of all, our weight fluctuates because of
Yeah.
many different factors. They can fluctuate within the day, particularly for women, but also for men, and definitely can fluctuate throughout the month. So that's a really bad metric. So really, when it comes to exercise and having metrics which actually work for us, I always advocate for how we feel every single day and then how our clothes fit. So if your clothes are fitting better, you're getting better despite what the scale may say.
Yeah,
And if you feel good inside yourself, you're waking up in the morning and you feel good to be alive. That's fantastic. It means you're doing things right. So everything will work out for you that way.
amazing. I love that so much. And I am going to put some links below for everyone so that people can get into your world, check out your books, check out your programs, things like that. So definitely check out the show notes, you guys. Is there any other words of wisdom that you would like to close with that you feel like is something people either haven't heard before or your beautiful, amazing, unique frequency is going to actually help it land for them today?
Well, thank you for saying that. Well, what I'm going to say is that, everybody expects fitness to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Life isn't easy. It's going to be difficult. But if you work it out for yourself, what you want to do, make that emotional connection. So it actually means a lot to you. And if it means a lot to you, then everything you do has meaning for you, and it's for you only. It doesn't matter what other people say or what they think. Then everything which comes from that is going to go your way. It will take
Mm.
you where you want to go. It'll help make you feel happier, live longer, feel better, and actually have a happy life. And I think everybody deserves that.
Amazing. So beautifully well said. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your amazing wisdom with us. And like I said, everyone, please check out the links below and get in David's world so you can learn about this amazing stuff from someone who is aligned with us and the things that we're into. And I'm just so grateful that we got to connect and meet the way that we did. David just like poofed out of nowhere and wanted to hang out. And I was like, oh my God, we totally need to. This was so fun. And thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was absolutely brilliant conversation. I'm really grateful for this.
Me too. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Take care.